Welcome to the verse.
What is up, guys? Welcome to the Verse Crypto channel. I got a very special interview with Walrus. He's one of the representatives from NFTonPulse. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about this awesome project and discuss the upcoming Pulsechain launch that most of you guys are ambitious about today. So definitely excited to have you today, Walrus. How you doing, man?
Oh man, living the dream. Appreciate the invite and the opportunity, man. Love the gratitude, and yeah, we're really excited about some of this cool stuff we have coming on Pulsechain and trying to push an industry forward, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So just really curious, man. What's your background, and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I got it as far as like on the crypto side or outside of the crypto side. I've ran a few small businesses. Always just in a lot of marketing and sales things like that. So used to being in front, helping sort of decipher and explain a lot of these things. So one of the things that's made me, helpful when it comes to the Pulsechain community and a lot of these things is that I don't have a computer science background. I don't code. I can't build these things innately. So I have the same questions as everyone else. I'm just close enough to the guys with the answers, right? So I end up kind of working as that kind of translator in the middle to where, a lot of times I can explain some of these things that are complex at the level that we understand them, because I don't build these things either. So I've been really involved in a lot of like the admin chats for Pulsechain, part of the HowToPulse team, which is the core thing. We're the guys behind NFTonPulse. We have, solutions for compromised wallets. We have the most in-depth education source for Pulsechain and that chain as a whole, evolved everywhere. We do a lot of marketing and things like that. So I've been in crypto for a long time, just right before Ethereum in 2014 with Bitcoin. At the time, I was nowhere near as educated, savvy, as interested. It was just really kind of a counterculture thing where I was like, wait, this stuff's outside of the government control, very libertarian view. I was like, bite my thumb at the man that let's go build stuff, right? So it wasn't until the last couple of years that I've sort of kind of grown into the role that I'm in now. But big enthusiast for cryptocurrency as a whole, censorship resistant, making these things palatable and pragmatic for most people to use. And once I really got lashed in with the Pulsechain, sort of that ecosystem as a whole, I'm personal friends with a lot of the founding projects on there, and man, just can't leave it alone now. Full obsession.
Man, yeah, that's definitely awesome, especially talking about your background, how you're not into like computer science. I know I met so many people that got into cryptocurrency that have like a non-technical background, and they've really expanded into so many different projects. So that's really, really cool. My next question is, what got you involved with the Hex and Pulsechain community? Were you like kind of one of the first guys to hop into Hex, or how did that come about?
So as I was saying, when I very first got into crypto, it was, almost a little juvenile. It was just kind of a bit of a rebel rousing idea that, I'm a free thinker. I don't like being told what to do and these things. So it was a very sort of moral thing when I first got in. I didn't have an investor mind state. I didn't understand markets very well or any of these things. As I kind of came in, I just kind of kept my thumb on the heartbeat. And where it really shifted for me was in seeing, I like greatness. Like I have very, very powerful mentors. I like great people everywhere. I don't really like betting for the underdog very often. I like to bet on the favorite. I wanted Michael Phelps to win another gold. I would have wanted Jordan to get number 7. I want LeBron to crush everybody. I want Brady to go win again. I love greatness when I see it, right? I've been close to it ever since I was young, and I've seen what it takes to be great, and I really enjoy that. So where I started to get involved with Hex and Pulsechain was I saw some of RH's, Richard Hart, the founder, some of his early things where he was debating a lot of the guys in the Bitcoin space. And it wasn't some of what people have seen recently, but it was a lot of it was in the design compromises between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Core at the time. And as someone who really enjoys game theory, I like playing poker. Like I'm a professional fantasy football player on the side. I like game theory, right? I like breaking systems, and to see those guys that were great, like these were great thinkers, right? Regardless of whatever you think about any of their personal aspects, these are elite thinkers. These are people who have a lot of skill set, who are very competent and successful in a lot of places. And now we're getting to kind of get a behind the scenes look at how their brains work, right? So listen to them argue and go between some of the design choices between big blocks and small blocks, and how many people can run nodes and certain censorship resistance. That's what got me hyper engaged. And and seeing RH sort of take a a pragmatic look at a lot of these things and seeing him challenge sort of a status quo really resonated with me. So that's sort of what got me into that space there. And then seeing it grow from Hex in the community where, they're definitely not the most popular. And, some of that I think we could take on ourselves community, but a lot of that is because we challenge a lot of standard ideas. And again, that's something that's always resonated with me. If you're a free thinker, and most people in cryptocurrencies they're sort of used to being in a minority, right? A lot of times we don't like, it's not even that we don't like what's sort of mass accepted. It's just usually wrong in our opinions, right? Like we like better things. We want to build on things. So I resonate a lot with the founder's early message and then sort of in the community as well. And when the opportunity for Pulsechain came out about, going on roughly a year and a half, 2 years ago now, when it was first being, thought up, that really resonated. The idea of doing a layer one with sort of the values that this community and founders have really got me involved. And it's really sort of echoed across. So like we talked about some of these project founders, a lot of the DeFi space being built on top of Pulse are people I know personally. And that's something that being in early is interesting. Not just that, you're going to get mad gains because you're early, but we're going to be at a spot where, say, in a few years, just like with Ethereum now, like, most of the people that run the things we're used to, we don't know who runs these people, right? Like, does anyone know the core devs who run Geth? Do you know the guys who run Uniswap? All these tools we use, most of the time, those founders are almost out of touch, out of reach. They're guys at the top now. Well, because a lot of these people had the same ethos, and because I was in early and participating, now I see these projects that have that same sort of morality and design choices, and and I'm able to talk to those guys directly. So being able to be instrumental in something that resonated with me at a high level is just what got me so obsessed and involved in so many of these projects, along with the chain itself.
Yeah, definitely. It's so strange when I look at Hex, how you have one guy like Richard Hart that came about and he created a product that appreciates so quickly. And regardless of what anyone believes with a lot of these cryptocurrencies, anyone investing in them right now, their main goal is to get some sort of return behind them. And you got someone who is such an outlier that creates something that appreciates so quickly is pretty insane. Especially seeing something
Exactly.
like Uniswap and Ethereum and Cardano. You have teams of probably over 200 people. I have a friend that works over at Avalanche, and he tells me that the corporation's massive, massive, massive. And
Huge.
yeah, and to see a product like that grow, and then to also see a community that's astronomically bananas when it comes to this project is pretty cool. So yeah, that's definitely a really cool background story and whatnot. So how did you jump on to howtopulse.com, with that project? What led you down that route? Well, actually, before we hop into that, could you kind of give us a brief breakdown what howtopulse.com is, and then discuss how you got involved with the project?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It's essentially a how-to site for the ecosystem. So me and a lot of the team members have a very get in where you fit in type mentality. And in crypto in general, whatever projects you guys are involved in, just a quick little soapbox. These are decentralized things. You can go build on them. If the crypto's done properly, you don't have to ask for permission. If you're in a community, you want to have X thing done, go build it. Find the people that can. And that was sort of the ethos of what got us going. Is there's a lot that goes into Pulsechain, and some of the things that we sort of, preach in the community, are a little counterculture. So you got to explain to people why, otherwise they just think you're doing things wrong. So we formed the How to Pulse site as a sort of an information place where it was very centralized and you can get a lot of information. Why do we use the vocabulary we particularly do that's a little different from the standard? Why do we make some of the design choices we do? How to use hardware wallets and a lot of security methods and multi-sig and things like that. Just an all-around repo for education and as a place to allow other people to contribute. So the core team does the vast majority of it, but we have a lot of contributors where they say, hey, I don't think this is well explained, or hey, here's my take. Maybe this will resonate with a different group. So, a lot of us have where maybe one person's take, even if it's exceptionally well done, just doesn't hit, right? You got to hear from someone else. So in some ways it was about education and giving different people a place to put their take on some of the things that are already out there. And, I'm big on education because I think that if you build things that are more valuable than what's out there, you have the responsibility to make sure that other people use good systems, right? And sometimes that stuff's hard, and it starts with education. So if we can educate, you sort of, bring people in with the glitz and, big gains. And it's like, cool, now let's educate them. Let's give them some financial literacy. Let's explain why our thing's better, right? Crypto can be a little difficult. Knowing why things are better is hard. So it's a big focus on education. We do a lot of outbound marketing, explanation for things that are very, very palatable. A lot of, again, security discussion, making sure that people are safe with their funds. And so the core guys, Lank and J Money and some of our devs, these guys were sort of kicked this thing off, and I would have been a little more involved actually at the beginning with them, but I was doing admin work and doing a lot sort of things, trying to help control chats and taking over a different position. And as it grew and as I grew in the community, I got on with ALTCOIN as sort of the guy that can come in and explain some of these things and do some of the things like we're doing here. And I've kind of come in as a bit of an outside thinker, again, that doesn't come from some of the technical background. So I ask the devs different questions when, two devs are discussing, they're looking at how things work. I'm looking at what can I do with it, right? I have a different look on it. So, I've come in that role of being a translator and a different set of eyes and a different kind of game theory look at the tools and, protocols that we build.
Yeah, when it comes to a project like Hex, it's very simple, but it's also complex in terms of, the staking and how the T-shares work. And when I first saw your website, I thought it was probably when I first saw this website, I thought it was very brilliant based on the design and the education aspects behind it, because like a lot of this information needs to be broken down, and developers and you guys did a phenomenal job with that onto howtopulse.com. So how's the overall engagement been going for that website? Have you been bringing on a lot of new users? Have you been onboarding a lot of people using this education approach?
We have over 600,000 unique hits in about 8 months.
Holy smokes. Wow.
It is very, very effective. It is I would probably say the most effective tool that I've seen in the space. And we've done a lot on the backside with just like SEO, being very engaging on Twitter storms, we have a little joke that bro high fives don't pump the price. So you can do a lot inside of a community to kind of keep them engaged, but you got to reach out, right? You got to change people's, worldview, win over their hearts and minds. So we spend a lot on outbound marketing. We do a lot for the community to educate them, but we got to reach out with those things, right? So we do a lot to make sure that the community itself is very, very savvy. And again, whether you agree with our opinions or not, if you step into a lot of the chat rooms for Pulse or Hex, or you grab random guys, they're knowledgeable people. It's a community that is very, security centric. They talk a lot about liquidity pools. They look at the staking sites that we have, where we look at when these stakes are going to end, which is the mechanic that pays you yield in Hex for those that aren't familiar with it. It's a knowledgeable group, and it's a little older demographic, and we like some of that. So we've been trying to balance helping the community that's here get stronger, get sharper, be safe, and bringing people in, because in a lot of ways, I'm very fond of the community. I love our community. Like, that's one of those things that people say, and I think a lot of the time they mean it. Like, I feel it. Like, I love these guys. The amount of gratitude that they show us is insane, and that's what pushes us to keep building better tools and things. So we've had huge success. We run Twitter storms. We do outbound marketing on like airdrop.io and a lot of these places to get people into the Pulse ecosystem. We engage with other, current ERC20 projects, things that are on Ethereum, and say, hey guys, the way your system works, you're one of these communities that are being hampered by, gas fees that a lot of us have felt, that I'm sure all your users have cussed and screamed and thrown a wireless mouse across the room when they had to pay some of those fees. So that, again, when it comes to NFTonPulse, those were two things that we've seen. So the two biggest users of gas on Ethereum, like if you ever look at just who's paying a lot of fees, it's the NFT community and people using decentralized exchanges. So naturally, the airdrop and some of the cool stuff around Pulse engages a lot of those first communities. And our project was a way of reaching out to the other side. Who is it that's most incentivized to come use a better network, right? So you start with people who are most incentivized, and then you work your way down from there. So that's where a lot of the outreach has been, a lot of the methodology around how to Pulse, and why we ended up building the marketplace that we have.
Yeah, you guys do a great job of doing something called like blitz scaling, and a lot of the big tech companies use this as a way to onboard new users. And since you have like a website that you can send over to people, and they send it to their friends, they send it to their friends, it's going to cause mass adoption, especially with something with Pulsechain. So it's definitely really cool. And when I checked out you guys' website, you have one for Hex, the Pulsechain token, the PulseX token. You're really doing a great job of breaking down each of those projects. You guys have plans on adding any other projects that you want to talk about, or you don't have to, you don't want to? So
no. So we are there's a little bit of a balancing act, right? Because while we operate in some of the core room that the chats and things like that, and we have I'm very pro a lot of adoption. As I said, I'm personal friends with a lot of these founders now. After all the work we've done together, they're building really cool infrastructure. There's guys that are personal friends that some of their projects actually compete with some of the things we do. I still love them. I want them to succeed. I still talk about their stuff. Where we've had to do a balancing act now is because the Pulse hasn't actually launched yet. We're still participating in a lot of the official chats, and we have to make sure that we don't promote so much other ticker symbols and other projects that we sort of can't do our thing in the main chat, right? So that's a little bit of the balancing act now. We'll always do more things. That's why a lot of our project isn't on there too. That goes for us too, right? We can't say, no, we can't talk about these third-party projects, but show our own I would say Richard Hart's house, right? So if we're in these main chats with Pulse, it needs to be Pulse, PulseX, Hex first, and we'll always grow. We do a lot to support other communities, and that will evolve a little more as we go. But we want to make sure that we're kind of staying true to our roots and that we don't overstep, and make sure that we can still participate to the community as a whole at first. So that'll progress a little bit, but that's a bit of one of those design compromises we've had to make so far.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can definitely see, especially once the launch happens, I can definitely see y'all have multiple projects. And I like how you brought up a really good point about how, there's projects that you guys compete with that you're friends with, and, you got a nice relationship with them. When it comes to these decentralized exchanges, there just can't just be one single decentralized exchange on Pulsechain. You want to have maybe 5, 6, or 7, and it's going to really increase community engagement. And it creates this competition where, you have each of these projects present a new feature, and it basically increases the overall efficiency of each of the projects. So that's definitely really cool. And I'm excited to see what you guys post on that website, because it's definitely really cool. So your target onboarding community, I'm assuming it's mostly Ethereum, because, we have the snapshot and the huge airdrop. But have you have any success with other communities like Binance Smart Chain or Phantom or whatnot? Do you have anything, any information on that by chance when it comes to onboarding?
So we have, again, it's one of those tricky things where, as you said, you got to start with who's most incentivized, who's most likely to move over. We'll start to pivot some of those things. So the core team built PulseRamp, which is the bridge we're using between Ethereum and Pulse. So some of the reason that we haven't targeted as many of the Phantom networks and things like that is, we want to be reasonable a little bit in our approach. So if right now I can speak with Ethereum users and these guys and say, hey, you're incentivized, you're going to have duplicates. You don't have to sort of dump what you're in now. There's a bridge where we're going to be moving value back and forth. If I sort of come into Phantom right now, I'm just trying to kind of reach in their cookie jar a little bit. And I like to be respectful and make sure that we're always, I don't want my first foot to be like, hey, your network sucks, come play with my network, right? Like, hey, your coin sucks, come buy my coin. That's never really good. It doesn't feel good. I wouldn't want someone to come do that to my projects either, right? So as we have more things to offer, and as some of these bridges open up, we will reach out more and more and more to those communities. There's overlap there where we do reach out to them. We do in the NFT space, not just because of our NFT project, but because a lot of NFT projects have moved to those other chains only because they felt they couldn't compete on Ethereum. And so being on something that has a little more interoperability with Ethereum, I think is very beneficial to them. So we love those other communities. There's a lot of good stuff on those other chains, and we will continue to reach out to them. We just want to make sure that we are genuinely bringing value and not just sort of just competing over market share. There's a lot of that in crypto, and I don't think that's usually a very good approach. Usually causes a lot of tribalism and backlash. So we'll continue to improve some of those areas, but you want to start with the low hanging fruit, things that you have a lot to offer, and where you're not just saying, hey, dump your coin, buy my coin. But yeah, those things will definitely improve as we move forward and bridges come open and there's more interoperability and things of value. A good example of that is some of the Bitcoin communities, which they're a little vibrant. It's hard to kind of get those guys to do anything other than what they do. But there's a really cool project, Pulsechain, that giving some neat interoperability between them and allowing transactions between Pulse and the Lightning Network, where if you're using Lightning Network, well, cool. Now you have a way to come play games. You're able to move back and forth. And so now that there's a tool, a reason, a mutually beneficial reason, we'll start to reach out to some of the Bitcoin guys because now I got something to say, right? So those things are always evolving. It's a big moving target. But I'm glad you brought it up because that's something that we want to encourage and say, there's another group over here. They would be incentivized. What can we offer them other than just, hey, my coin's going to go up a bunch and your coin sucks? That's not fun marketing. No one wants to hear that message. So as things improve, we have better DeFi space and tools, but we'll keep reaching out to those communities and doing cool stuff.
Absolutely. And I love how you brought up interoperability because, I've covered this so many times and I cover a lot of projects when it comes to connecting blockchains because I feel like that's probably going to be the big moment in crypto adoption when you can go from blockchain to blockchain. And, you look at like projects like Quant and, what they're doing, the Cosmos IBCM, and it'll be very interesting to see how the Pulsechain blockchain performs, especially when we start to see a lot of these blockchains kind of connect, because a lot of the scalability issues will continue to occur. If let's say every single project were to move to the Pulsechain, then there's going to be massive scalability issues. But with this interoperability feature,
well, let's try it and see.
Yeah, we'll try. I feel like I'm gonna get attacked for that. But on a realistic perspective, the interoperability allows for the blockchains to communicate, and if a project can't function well in Ethereum, then it gives them an easier way to work on the Pulse chain. So it's going to be very interesting to see how some of these projects perform, especially when you have something like a ledger that's produced by Quant or whatnot. So sorry, it's a little off topic. It got me really.
No, I think it's a good one. I'll just add a little to it. Is that was some of the idea that I was getting at with the marketing, right? Is the reason that I haven't particularly used AVAX very much isn't because I think AVAX is dumb. I hate those guys. The things that I was interacting with that I found value in just weren't there, right? They've got projects, people building over there, right? So it was just almost like, hey, I do XYZ things. They have ABC things. So it wasn't, an issue with that. And that's something where I think Pulse has a lot of this to offer, where there's, this system state from Ethereum gives people who have an actual problem immediate use to come over here and do these things. And as these interoperability improve, maybe people who like AVAX or loyal a certain reason, if there's good interoperability, maybe they don't really participate, say, like in Pulse itself, but maybe NFTonPulse resonates with those guys, or some of these other cool things that are being built in our space. And if there's good interoperability, they can sort of keep their home and do all the things they're used to doing and just come engage with the things they find value in, right? So again, we're focusing on Ethereum because of these duplications and so much combination in code. And I see the same thing with like the Lightning Network, the Pulsechain guys, and Bitcoin, and maybe with AVAX. So if they find value in, say, like liquid loans, the collateralization program, well, cool, stay on AVAX. Come across a bridge or whatever infrastructure shows up between them. Come use LL, but keep most of your stuff on your chain. Cool. It's our job to find something valuable for you over here. And I think that we'll see that with a lot of these things. If you're a Bitcoin only guy, maybe you want to use some of the tools on Pulse for anonymity. Maybe you want to, use some of the DeFi tools or a stable coin. Cool. Now I built you a structure. I give you a reason where I'm not just saying, well, sell your Bitcoin and come play over here. Use your Bitcoin or whatever it is you found some loyalty and some use case for, and come in and use the tools that are valuable for you.
Absolutely. Definitely a great point. Yeah. So before we move on and talk about NFTonPulse, I'm just really curious, what are your overall thoughts on Pulsechain launching during the bear market? Do you think it's a good idea, bad idea? How do you think that's going to end up, in your opinion?
A lot of the ideas on timing, I think I could paint a narrative either way. I can say that it's a bear market, everything's down. Why would you want to launch when everyone hates crypto, right? Everyone's down, everyone's mad. Or you can say that, hey, do you want to be the only green candle, right? You want to be the shining light in the middle. You want to say that, hey, now that the market's low, it can't launch and then bring you down and give you an ugly chart. And if you launch in the bull, you could say, man, you're going to get lost in the weeds. Everything's going up. People are going to say that your coin didn't go up. It's just attached like everything else. So so that you can sort of just paint these things in a way. There's a lot of narrative you can go. I think for the most part, none of us are really good enough at sort of predicting what will happen, that it's worth time out of market to hit a timing note. So I'm a time in market, not timing the market. And I would say that we launch one as soon as it's ready and we feel that it's good and polished, and you just get to work. That's pretty much my view. I think there's a lot of, we can sort of paint ourselves a picture however we want it to be. I think you just put it out when it's ready and it's strong, and you get to work building cool stuff.
Cool. Definitely. Cool. So moving on to NFT on Pulse. So could you kind of give us like a brief breakdown of what this project is for someone who's never seen it before?
Sure. So NFT marketplaces are very similar. If you've seen one to some degree, if you're not heavy in the NFT space, you've seen them all. And that was sort of what we wanted to address, is we wanted to fill a need for a community that we knew was needed on Pulse, that was getting beat up on Ethereum in a lot of ways. And we wanted to sort of move that industry forward a little bit. We've added some features and done some things that will help push it forward beyond just listing sites as they're traditionally done. So we can touch on a few of the features, but the idea is making it an NFT marketplace that is, one, highly centerized on content creators, and also adding value to people to come to the site, give audience, do certain things, engage with users beyond just, essentially scrolling through it like it's an Amazon or an eBay. So we've kind of adopted like, hey, how can we make this more of like an art gallery model, adding audience to things that aren't just in the top 20. So the two big things with NFTs that we sort of wanted to address is, one, that was handled at the network level because the gas fees are very high. The other is that if you don't do NFTs, you have no reason to go to these things, right? Like if you're not going to give up 50 ETH for a board A, who cares, right? If you're not going to do this thing, who cares? So we've added a few features to really help find reasons to engage, not just because it benefits everyone, but because it takes away from the sort of, it's almost like an iceberg where people only see the tip, right? They only see these like top 20 projects. And if you're not really, really invested, you don't have a reason to hide. So there's that old joke. If you want to hide a body, put it on the third page of Google. No one will ever find it, right? So that's what we were trying to address with some of the things that we built in, was ways to not make it so top heavy and very, very creator centric.
Yeah, definitely. So with the launch of this project, are you guys mainly going for kind of like the market with, so on the Ethereum block, so on the Pulsechain launch, you're going to get a one-on-one copy of the NFTs. Are you mainly aiming for this market, or are you aiming for more of a market where you invite creators over to create their own NFTs and sell them? Like, well, what are your thoughts on that?
I think our biggest goal is to broaden the market in some ways, add some maturity things that we find to be really cool. But it's also in the idea of like a mall, and that you got to build it where the people are, right? So we have to attract that current audience, give them a place on Pulse, allow them to use these copies in interesting ways and get engagement. Otherwise there's no audience to bring in new people, right? So it's one of those kind of generic sales guys, right? Yes, right. I want everybody. You got to sort of focus again on what's here first, and make sure that people have a lot of value in these copies, that they don't have a bad taste in their mouth and get turned away early. And then we'll have our spin on adding a lot to sort of non-traditional NFT creators, new NFT creators, people who built cool stuff on NFT creators but are just buried and can't get traction, and also some cool mature uses of them, similar to like what we've seen with HSI stakes, which is a cool thing that Hedron built on top of Hex.
Okay, so you guys are planning on basically allowing, well, you're planning on using your marketplace to sell HSI stakes, correct? Is that what you were saying earlier?
It's part of that, right? So like
Yeah.
HSI stakes are like a really cool utilitarian use of NFTs that's moving forward. And so again, it's about kind of like bringing together a lot of audiences. So if, a lot of the Hex and Hedron, that community that built HSI stakes, they do one thing, right? They're kind of in their way to do these things. Well, if we can give them reasons to engage with the rest of the site, maybe they will find NFT projects that they do find engaging in different ways. And the inverse, if you're just in NFTs and you're, more of a, that left brain creative thinker, and you've seen some value in it, maybe you see HSI stakes and you see some of these more, very kind of traditional financially literate things, and you get that match of where, if you've been very, very successful in NFTs and now you have generated a lot of wealth, man, let's give those guys something useful to use it. Let's get them in the rest of the DeFi space, not have them just cashing out and running with the money, right? And the inverse, if you are one of these guys that has some wealth and financial literacy, let's find ways to use this tech and give these guys something engaging and interesting to do with it as well. So some of it's just about the overlap and again, making this thing where it's not just about the top 20 current NFT projects. Gotcha.
So can you explain the utility behind the INNO, the INNO token? I know on the website, it talks about how you can stake this token. You'll get a revenue share behind, the minting and the sending of the NFTs. Can you kind of break that down a little bit?
Yeah. So that was another one of these things about making this artist and creator centric is again, on these big listing sites, you have almost no reason to sort of promote them other than you're there, right? So the idea was on the INNO token, it was essentially 100% of that revenue. And the team actually, we built it, but that way what we're taking is very clear and transparent. And that was important to us. So with the INNO, now people can not only have some of these unique revenue streams and again, not be so top heavy and feel like they're buried, but they'll also feel like they have a stake in the platform. And I think it just makes for a better incentive alignment to where one, we do well, you do well. And if you do well, we do well, right? So it has a lot to do with making sure that it's a nice decentralized system, that it's not some corporate structure, just taking cream off the top from creators. And it's a lot better relationship between content creators and development creators, the project as a whole. There's a lot of symbiosis there, making all those things interoperable. And it's a great opportunity if you just want to stake it and take some fees, right? Everyone likes a little yield. So it's, again, a lot of times, the more you can align incentives, the more people are going to be rowing in one direction. And that's kind of the idea on doing the token that particular way, putting 100% of the fees there is incentivizing all of us to be rowing in the same direction and build cool stuff.
Absolutely. Do you guys have any plans on launching any sort of NFT collections or any collaborations with any other projects?
We're still looking at a few of the ways of making sure that it doesn't seem like we're just kind of made an NFT marketplace, told it's for everybody, and then putting our stuff on the front page, right? So one of the cool things is that our devs are creators. They're musicians. The Walrus, if anyone's ever seen my avatar pretty much anywhere, one of our NFT devs drew and built that Walrus, right? Like the guy designing what will be the first NFT I've minted is also the dev building the marketplace. So when we're like, it's for creator by creators, that's one of those things that's been saturated, but it's very true here. Like the guys, really involved in the community are the ones building it. They do care because they are the same people. So there'll be some collabs, there'll be some things we put out. We're going to balance sort of when we release, because we don't want it to be about us in the front. If we did, we would have just forked OpenSea, put up 2% and just took our cut and run, right? But that's the whole concept was not about that. So we're going to mix in and keep doing things. We're going to gamify some of this to make sure that current content creators have cool reasons to come over. And again, I think that tying that together with the token and giving them sort of a stake in the platform will make it where these collaborations happen organically, because so many people want this thing to be successful. You want it to be successful because it's where your stuff is, because you're getting a cut of the fees, and sort of the backwards. You want everyone else to be successful because you're getting a cut of their fees too, and you're on the platform. So that wholeness approach is a big part of it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm about out of time right now. Hey, Walrus, I just want to say thank you so much for letting me interview you today. It was a great conversation, and hopefully we can touch up again down the road after the Pulsechain launch.
Love to, brother. Thanks for the good questions, man. Glad that you guys are reaching out. We're not just about our community. We built cool stuff. We want it for everyone else. So thanks so much for everyone joining. And if they have any questions, come to ALTCOIN. Come beat me up on Twitter. Whatever it is you guys are into, we're happy to help and do anything we can for adoption.
Absolutely. And you guys go and check out NFTonPulse.io. We'll leave it down in the description. Till then, I'll see you again, my brother. You have a good one.
Cheers.